This is the iPhone 14 Pro. It was released back in 2022 and it brought a number of different features like a brighter display, an always on display for the first time on an iPhone, SOS via satellite, car crash detection, better cameras, but the biggest change of all was the dynamic island. And since the iPhone 14 Pro has been out for well over a year now, you can pick one of these up for a really good price. That and the fact that it looks basically identical to the iPhone 15 Pro, then that also begs the question, should you still buy the iPhone 14 Pro? Let's kick things off here with the design. As I mentioned, it looks basically identical to the iPhone 15 Pro, apart from the fact that the 14 Pro is a little bit more squared off, and instead of titanium, it's using stainless steel, which unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on which way you look at it, makes the phone a little bit heavier. But it's a design that has aged really well up until now, and I believe will age extremely well for the next couple of years. On the front, you get Dynamic Island, which, love it or hate it, has gotten more and more functional over the past year. And that's a very good reason why you should consider the 14 Pro instead of the older 13 Pro or even the 12 Pro. I mean, it's great for when you're using certain apps that support live activities, like being able to see the status of your flight with Flighty, being able to see football scores with FootMob, being able to see the status of your timer without even opening the app or asking Siri. It's a feature that at the beginning might have seemed like a gimmick, but it's becoming more and more useful, and Apple is definitely going to find even more ways of making it useful in the future. You get the infamous always on display, which a lot of people hated because they claimed that it drained their battery, but now Samsung's basically copied Apple's version of the always on display, and people don't seem to be complaining on the other side. After having used the always on display on the 14 Pro for over a year, I've got no burn-in. The battery life has been the same as it would have been if I had it off, and it's also been surprisingly helpful. Like, I work at my desk a lot of the day, and being able to just glance over at my phone and see my notifications and my time without even having to touch the phone, I think is really cool. Same goes for when I'm driving in the car. I want to quickly glance at the clock. It's a feature that once you start using it, yes, you may be sacrificing maybe 1 to 2% battery a day, but to be honest, it's worth it. And hey, if you don't like it, you can turn it off. Now, the battery on the iPhone 14 Pro is pretty much the only and the biggest downside to this phone, especially when it comes to the battery health department. I've owned this phone for a little over a year now, and it's all the way down to 87% battery health, which is not great. Of course, there are a couple of reasons why I think it's degraded that much, but to keep it brief, a lot of people I have spoken to who have even the regular iPhone 14 have been complaining about the degradation being a little bit higher than older iPhones. But if you're planning on getting this phone, you may want to consider getting something that has 100% battery health or at least 90%, and then within the next year or two to replace the battery if you're planning on keeping it long term. But even when my 14 Pro was at 100% capacity, it still wouldn't get me through a full day of heavy usage. In fact, halfway through last year, I ended up picking up the Apple MagSafe battery pack. Although it does have its downsides, it is probably the best MagSafe battery pack I have ever tried, because you can charge your iPhone overnight and it'll also charge the battery pack. If you end up getting the 14 Pro and battery is still a concern, then this is a great option. If not, it may actually be worth considering getting the 14 Pro Max instead. Of course, if you're getting it for just casual use, the usual scrolling on Instagram and TikTok, the occasional YouTube video, the occasional game of, I don't know, Angry Birds, then this phone may last you the whole day. But as I said, it will depend on how you use the phone, and also bear in mind that if you do get it, you may or may not need a battery replacement within the next year or two. Now, before I move on to the cameras on the iPhone 14 Pro, which are amazing by the way, if you're considering getting a new phone, you probably most likely are also planning on getting a case for it, right? And that's exactly what today's sponsor has to offer. This is the Aspen by Andar in blank, and this color specifically is made out of premium cactus leather, which makes the case look and feel really high quality. The buttons are also nicely covered and still remain very clicky, which is a problem that I've found in other leather cases in the past. And the best part about this case is that it's MagSafe compatible. So if you want to get that Apple MagSafe battery pack, it will work perfectly with the Aspen. Andar also offers a 90-day return policy as well as a 12-month warranty, so if there's anything wrong with your case or you don't like it for whatever reason, Andar is always there to help. Andar also makes a number of other cases and accessories for your devices, most of which are made of full grain leather, and I've managed to hook you guys up with a 15% off discount code store-wide by using code BENOBI at checkout. So if you're looking at picking up one of these cases, the link will be in the description below. And a huge shout out to Andar for sponsoring this video. But now let's get back to the iPhone 14 Pro's cameras. The cameras are literally my favorite part about the iPhone 14 Pro. They're honestly a pretty big improvement from the iPhone 12 and the iPhone 13 lineups. You're getting a main 48 megapixel sensor, which is crazy good. You also get a 12 megapixel ultra wide and a 3x telephoto. And on the front, you also get an awesome 12 megapixel front facing camera. Color and dynamic range is great. It spits out pretty good stuff in low light as well. But the video capabilities for a phone that's almost 2 years old are honestly just mind-blowing. This phone has literally replaced my mirrorless camera, especially with features like 4K cinematic mode and action mode. In fact, all of my videos since I got the iPhone 15 Pro have been filmed on my iPhone 14 Pro. Apart from this one, of course, for obvious reasons. But if the cameras are a huge decider in your phone buying decision, then the iPhone 14 Pro will not disappoint. Now, initially when this phone came out, I complained a lot about the software because it wasn't fantastic by all means. iOS 16 was full of bugs, glitches, and other sorts of issues. But with iOS 17, a lot of those issues have been fixed, and it's a very smooth and likable and enjoyable experience now. And the performance of the A16 Bionic is also really good for gaming, if you're wondering about that aspect of things. Of course, it doesn't have the benefits of the A17 Pro on the iPhone 15 Pro with ray tracing and stuff like that. But again, A16, great chip. It will push you through most tasks and then some just fine. And the awesome thing is that software-wise, this phone will still get major feature software updates up until at least 2028, if not 2029. And as far as security updates go, you're looking at an extra 5 years on top of that. So you'll be getting security updates up until at least 2032, which is insane and is definitely something you can't find on the other side, if you know what I mean. Now, probably the biggest factor when deciding to get a phone like the iPhone 14 Pro is because of the price. Of course, it will depend on where you live and when you're watching this video. Right now, you can actually pick up an iPhone 14 Pro with 128 gigabytes of storage on eBay for just under $700, which if you compare it to everything that Apple sells right now is honestly a really, really good deal. And if you choose to go caseless, I'm pretty sure you'll be fine as well. In fact, most of the time I've had this phone, I've not even had a case on it. And of course, I've dropped it a bunch of times, but the front glass is flawless thanks to always using a screen protector that I would suggest using. But the back glass is pristine, and the stainless steel does have a couple of scratches and tiny dents here and there, but it's nothing really noticeable. But still, you probably should consider a case, and the Aspen is a good option. And although it's not the perfect phone, like as I mentioned, it lacks in the battery department. Honestly, if you make sure to get a 14 Pro with at least 90% battery health, if not better than that, and you commit to replacing the battery within 2 or 3 years if the battery does get really bad at that point. If I had to give you a straight answer on should you buy the iPhone 14 Pro, I would say absolutely. I think it's probably one of the best iPhones you can buy right now for the price, and for under $700, everything you get is just crazy. I think at that price point, you can't really do any better, at least on the iOS side of things. But if this video has helped you decide on whether you should upgrade to the iPhone 14 Pro or not, and you're planning on selling your old phone, I actually made a video about the 5 best ways you can sell your phone for the most profit. Check that out by clicking right here. And also don't forget to click the link in the description and treat yourself to an Andar case. These honestly are super good. Remember to use code BENOBI to get 15% off your whole order. Just go crazy with it. Huge shout out to Andar for sponsoring this video. But for now, thanks so much for watching. I'm Benji from Benobi Tech, and I'll catch you guys in the very next video.